Well, hello everyone. Thank you for those of you in person here at the Fire Hall, which is an amazing venue. Thank you for those of you who are online with the remote platform. Thank you for taking time out of your really busy day to join us, because we've got a very exciting topic and we want to open it up, and we will open it up later on. But first I just want to say hello. I'm Kelly Fornell. I'm the CEO of Tech Manitoba, and thank you so much for joining us for this, what we call Tech Mashup. So in the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered on Treaty 2 territory, the unceded territory of the Dakota and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Tech Manitoba continually seeks to cultivate better relationships with Indigenous peoples, communities, and businesses. I also want to say that Tech Manitoba exists to be a champion of our provincial tech community and to help connect our members to the wider business world. We see our members as enablers for the changes necessary to help all sectors and all industries adapt to those ongoing changes that are impacting your organizations. Our members can help you become more resilient, more secure through the successful adoption, got dry tongue, of new ways of working and through the effective use of new technologies. And also through the effective use of technologies you may already have, and that's an important distinction that Ken might talk about as well. We are very grateful, myself in particular, for the member organizations that support our sector and Manitoba's ongoing economic growth. A special thanks to our Tech Mashup sponsor, DXC Technology, who has supported us through the years to do what typically are lunch and learns that we call Tech Mashups. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you, if you may not know already, Kent Smith from ourCIO. Kent is the founding partner and the executive digital advisor at ourCIO. His vision is to level the playing field for small and medium businesses in Manitoba by creating a model where organizations can access much needed, trusted advice around digital technology, just like larger enterprises do. Kent has been employed in IT since he was a teenager in the late, and dare I say, if he's okay with it, the 90s. Sometimes people don't want to share that decade, but he has included it in his bio. As a young achiever, Kent progressed through various technology roles and into executive IT leadership roles in his mid-20s, where he has continued to grow ever since. He is known for his progressive leadership style, and I can also say he is incredibly generous with his time for nonprofits, which for an association like Tech Manitoba is incredibly important. He is incredibly positive, and most importantly, he simply gets a lot of things done. He brings business acumen and an entrepreneurial spirit to the work that he does. He is a champion of continuous improvement with keen interest in helping businesses transform and innovate. Kent is well versed in IT risk management, including that of closely managing cybersecurity for the businesses that he serves. Please help me welcome Kent onto the stage.
I need that bio for my LinkedIn profile.
Yes. Well, you wrote it, so thank you.
Oh, I did? Maybe. Feels like I'm at a wedding. I'm going to do a speech with a beer in my hand. I'm going to set that there and just get settled in. So before I say anything, I want everybody to do this for me just quickly, whether you are in a hybrid event connected remotely or here in person. Either scan this QR code with your phone or just go to slido.com and enter that number in. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so if you could just put a word or a phrase around what the term digital transformation means to you. Everybody's getting the QR code working. Let me give you some time with that. I'm hoping everybody online is seeing it. I'll maybe just read the number in case. Slido.com 3499601. We're going to look at those results in just a little bit. And I'll just get started and we will get to those results. So Kelly, thanks again, wherever you went. Where did you even go? There you are. Thank you. This is great. It's excited to be in Brad. I'm a kind of almost a Brandon night. I guess that's what we used to call ourselves. Grew up just an hour northwest of here, a little small town called Hamniota. Grew up in a family farm, grain farm, mixed farmed. So Westland's kind of always been like my little area, and I'm always excited to be back. Lots of friends here, so I think this is my third time being back in Brandon in as many weeks. I'm back here again in a couple more weeks, so all that's really good. As Kelly said, like, I've made a lifelong career in just doing tech stuff, but not so much on like the technology layer. It started where I had admin passwords. I would build servers and computers. Ran a small consulting firm here actually in Brandon 20 years ago or so. And I was always more interested in the business side of it, the business strategy side. And that, I think, goes back to like my high school days. I was going through the junior achievement back in those days, business courses and stuff like that. And so my world just all of a sudden mixed really well together, saying, okay, I get technology. I'm fascinated by what technology can do. And then there's this business strategy side. And so technology leadership was natural for me. And I got into that actually back consulting firm here, consulting for several businesses in Brandon. But actually working for Tundra Oil and Gas for 13 years in the oil and gas sector here in Manitoba. Started at Verdun, worked a few years there before they relocated me to Winnipeg, and handling two departments there, their technology department and innovation team. They were doing cool things. When you think about 4,000 oil wells here in the southwest corner of this province, and not only were we just managing an IT infrastructure, we were thinking like, how could we totally disrupt this industry? We were doing work partnering with the environmental team on what we can do with technology and environmental studies, and we were looking at oil wells and how could we put cameras and computer vision on these cameras so that if there's an oil spill, we don't need to wait 24 hours for a human being to drive on site to detect this oil spill. What if a camera can tell us that in seconds? How much further ahead are we? So it was really neat in the sense that we had capital to play around with, invest and try different things. After 13 years, it was my opportunity to exit that industry. And I was like, all right, now what am I going to do when I grow up? And I was doing some management consulting at the time. And really this whole idea dawned on me of, I love what I do, not so much to the enterprise space. I really love small, mid-sized business. The SME market is where I do my entity. It's where I think I can do my best work. And this whole, like, what if I could just do what I do, but in smaller fractional stages, and I'd be a CIO or a VP of IT for smaller businesses, so they just need a piece of me, not all of me, and that's where ourCIO came from. And it's a very cool story because after 3.5 years, we've gone, two of us, we were pretty much COVID babies just before COVID started, and we're up to 14 people across Western Canada right now helping deliver on digital strategies for small, mid-sized businesses. And I love it, and the work is so rewarding, so being invited here is tremendous. I think this is a lot of fun. I bring this picture, this is me today, actually, Heritage Co-op on Richmond. And so my gas tank is not up here, this is an electric truck. And I picked this up actually here at Kelliher Ford in Brandon. You're hearing my Brandon roots come through a lot. This to me is just a big experiment. This is an expensive experiment, but it's something I needed to try. And actually the expensive sounded bad. You spec out the same F-150 in an internal combustion engine, and I think it was $4,000 less. So this is a $4,000 difference. If I look at it, I've already paid my money off in the 17,000 kilometers I've had of this vehicle. My drive to Brandon today, $12 from Winnipeg. That's cheap. So it's kind of cool. There's actually an ROI here, or payback, I guess. But for me, it's about trying to explore the new things and understand what's this whole thing about. Where's disruption coming into place? Where's technology changing? Like where trends are? And this is just a consumer level trend, clearly. But there's a customer experience involved here. In this truck, it is so very cool. My truck is communicating with the electric charger, which is communicating with my cell phone. I went for a 20-minute walk. And while I was walking, I could see how's my charge life, what's the speed, how much money have I spent? And this gets into the whole topic of digital transformation we're talking about. This is a customer journey that I went on when I plugged my truck into an electric charger. That was kind of neat. And so I'm just sharing this just more as like, it's the theme of digital transformation, which we're going to talk about today. And this, like the whole, why do we do digital transformation? What are we doing that should improve business value in the customer journeys. So anyways, just as an innovator, I wanted to kind of show that picture that I think is kind of fun. I have to say this, so I do work through ourCIO, or work with several organizations. I sit on the national board for the CIO Association of Canada, and I'm also the local chapter president for the CIO Association chapter here in Manitoba. But I'm also the Chief Information Officer for Credit Central of Manitoba. I'm also the Chief Information Officer for a nonprofit, large nonprofit across Manitoba, Saskatchewan called Trinity Leaf Community Services. My views here possibly reflect what their thoughts are, but these are my independent views, and I always have to say this. I do lots of board presentations, and the last thing I want people to think is I'm speaking on behalf of anybody but myself. So I want to pull up these results. Let's just see what we're thinking. Okay. Whoop. I have to go to the other screen. See? This is what we're thinking the term digital transformation means. And right front and center, that doesn't surprise me in the least. It's change. I think lots of stuff to put in change. But yeah, there's lots of other things in here. Opportunity, innovation, connecting online, value, keeping up with the times, progress. It's all these things. Dealing with stakeholders, using technology efficiently. Thank you for sharing. Now I gotta figure out how to close this. And you can't see my way over here.
Go a little higher.
You know, like double click a shot. I can't do it.
You can see on the wall.
Oh yeah, so you're right. I can see them all. The term to me is absolutely overkill. It's overused as a buzz term, but it has relevance. And so we will spend some time talking about what digital transformation is. Everything you put is bang on. We all think of it a little bit differently. I think where I struggle with what digital transformation means is it's kind of something we've been doing for 30 years. In my views, we've been modernizing our businesses and how we do business and how we add value to our business and how we add value to our customers through the use of technology. It started with a computer and even got QuickBooks, and then it grew into networks and servers and all this stuff. I think the only difference in why the term digital transformation is coming forward today is that we are more radically changing with the adoption of technology than we ever have before. And so that's where we see this term come into play. But I think whether we realize it or not, oops, I'm sorry here, I just gotta find my mouse again. That's on the other screen, there we go. Sorry, where I'm just going with my thought is, whether we realize it or not, in many aspects, we're all digital businesses now, whether we even understand ourselves to be digital businesses today or not. You take technology out of the business, I don't think we function anymore. There's very few businesses that can't. There's some of you, I've been changing oil in cars for 20 years, but you probably use an aspect of technology in that you don't realize, whether that's how you interface with your supply chain, the product you come in versus that's how you invoice, that's how you track your books, whatever it is. You're using technology to a certain amount, and without it, business probably doesn't operate. But in today's world, we're marketing using technology. We don't even exist if we're not on Google and search engines and on Google Maps and stuff like that with our reviews and such. So we're all digital businesses to a certain extent. Where digital transformation really comes in, as I said, is the more progressive use and integration of digital technology into, I would say, all areas of our business now, and in ways that fundamentally change how we do business, how we fundamentally change the way we add value into our businesses, and how we deliver value to our clients. So key drivers behind digital transformation, I think there's a laser pointer here, changing of customer experience and expectation. I'd say that's probably the biggest one. Is just we're all consumers ourselves. How do we shop now? I'd like to say I'd like to think we all support local businesses as much as we can. I do. I'm at Christmas. We try to do Amazon-less Christmases now, and that's actually a challenge. But like, who hasn't bought something off of Amazon? Our expectations now are to be able to go to a website, to do our research, to easily click on a button, purchase, go through your e-commerce transaction, be done, have this thing ship up, end up on your porch days later, sort of a thing. And so that whole customer experience has absolutely changed. Technical advancement is also what's driving this. Like, without this rapid change that we've been seeing, digital transformation wouldn't exist. And these are technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, big data, data analytics, Internet of Things. We'll dive into some of those things as we go on. These have created absolute crazy opportunities for businesses that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. Competitive pressure is another big one, and that is really, I'll blame the startups on this one. These are disruptive startups that are coming in the space. Like, our competition, when we think about our businesses now, I think our competition is today. Our biggest competition might not even be a company that we're aware of today. And that's what's crazy, because they're going to come right out of left field, because these are digitally native companies that are starting with a digital footprint. They're thinking digital from right the moment that they open up their digital doors, if you will. And we've seen disruption, big disruption in this space. When you think of the kind of started back in the Netflix days and slaughtering of Blockbuster, we've seen it with Uber and Airbnb and so many others. But that's happening on a micro scale as well. Certainly there's the regulatory environment as well, and there are the regulations and compliance requirements that are pushing businesses to adopt digital solutions, especially around data management and security. And my view, and I think most of us are agreeing now, that businesses who aren't fostering digital technology are likely going to get left behind. And that's why I'm here to speak today. Cover off some of the benefits that really should line up to the drivers that we were talking about. Enhanced customer experience. That's just what customers want. They want that end-to-end journey. Their buying experience needs to be seamless. It needs to be fun. It's very different than it used to be. Reddit being able to get support after they bought something. Increased operational efficiency. That's certainly an area that I've been doing a lot of work with the organizations have been helping out. The digitization of manual processes, finding ways to reduce human error, process errors, and those little things that happen, major productivity improvements, and just helping with decision making, which goes right into the urban insights. Is how can we bring data together and empower better decision making and real-time decision making. We're not looking at data from 3 months ago. Let's look at data that's happening yesterday or right now and make decisions on that. And then just agile business models as well. Digital transformation enables businesses to respond way quicker than we used to. Way quicker. We used to take forever to think about things and analyze things, and now we're doing it almost like a snap of the finger. I think COVID's a great example of that. If anything, we used to sit on our hands all the time. We wouldn't do things so fast. We would hyper-analyze everything and assess it to the nth degree, really just paralyze ourselves through analysis. And then COVID forced our hands, and we started to become agile and make these crazy decisions that just take a little bit of risk. And I think there's lots of downsides to COVID. I like to be glass half full kind of a person, but lots of positive things came from this. We're talking about it here, like having a hybrid event for Tech Manitoba. What an awesome opportunity where they're not just in the perimeter in Winnipeg hosting an event. We can come to Brandon, they can represent ourselves across the province in person, but also hybrid, just from anybody's computer system. I think that's an excellent story. Anyways, what I'm largely here to do is I'm more than happy to share some insights through our work at ourCIO, working with several. This past year we interfaced with over 50 Manitoba organizations, which I think is exceptionally cool. These are small, mid-sized businesses, and I want to share some insights. We talked with digital transformation, great on a big scale. We're seeing some really cool things, but what are we seeing here in the province? I'm not going after the sexy stories here. There are some really fascinating stories. I'm just going to share like some real things that are happening. I'm largely going to skip over this one. We're going to dive into this in kind of the second half of my presentation, but this has absolutely been top of mind right now for the C-suite, for business owners, shareholders, and the likes, and that's been cyber resilience. How do we survive a cyber situation, data privacy and all that. We'll unpack that, so I'm not going to spend any time on that just right now. The second theme, and probably one of the larger themes that we're seeing right now, is where does technology fit into operational efficiencies? Exploring ways of streamlining and automating work, especially like that routine work that we as human beings do over and over and over again. But also part of this is like how do we get more of the existing investments that we've already paid for things. We have these very expensive line of business applications that we've spent so much money on, and we're using one or two features from it. How about the 10 other things that it does? Can that bring business value forward? Can that generate better opportunities for us? So there's been a lot of work that we're seeing in this space, and I'm really glad to see that this is coming over the boardroom tables that I speak at a lot. And a lot of it where it's stemming from is we've always done things this one way for so many years, and we're taking a moment to step back. And again, COVID was what really started this off, is how can we review this process or this workflow that we've been doing this way for 20 years now. Let's rework it as modern as it in a digital way. And I don't want us to think that the way we used to do it in the paper format, we just duplicate or do it in a digital format. You haven't gained anything if you do it that way. It's how we actually step back and really re-engineer a more streamlined, more effective way, and throw some tools in there. As we're seeing tools around robotic process automation, RPA, and business process automation, BPA. These are tool sets that we're seeing come into play, where you can use like software robots to do work that would be very transactional work that we would do over and over and over again. And I always have subscribed to the saying, let's let a computer do computer things so we as human beings do human things. That saying's getting old now because this whole little thing called ChatGPT is kind of changing my mindset on that, because I think maybe humans might not have quite as much work to do in the future. We'll talk maybe a bit about that as well. Most rudimentary basic place that people you start with this though is just take a look at our Microsoft 365 subscription. We all subscribed to it during the pandemic. We used it for email and maybe to get OneDrive so users can access their My Documents from home when they're working from a pandemic. But under the hood, there is tons of different features within something as simple as Microsoft 365. And where we've seen a lot of businesses adapt some tools here and make radical improvements in their organizations is leveraging things like SharePoint for how they manage the data, bring structured data into there, with SharePoint lists and that sort of thing. But also the use of Microsoft Forms is very simple. We started with SurveyMonkey many years ago. Microsoft Forms, you're paying for it already. It's under the hood. Take advantage of it. And have that Microsoft form data you're collecting for whatever the example might be, go into your SharePoint, and you can find data analytics off of that. And another tool we actually see a lot of use of here, the different departments, different projects teams, is Microsoft Planner. Very simple tool that you wouldn't even know was there. And if you click in that left-hand box and you expand all the tool sets that are part of your Microsoft 365 subscription, Microsoft Planner is a really good kind of project management light, if you will, that could just help you keep things in check. I really like to be worded this as I like to get things done. We used to have this saying, this actually came up with my team in Tundra, GSD we called it. Get, you can imagine what the S stood for, done. And actually, that's where we first started exploring the Microsoft Planner is part of our get S done technique, the concept that you have to write things down to do it. And so the idea is to write things down that might be things we touch in 2 years from now, but if you build it there, you can let it incubate and see what hatches. We'll see what we work on, as it's a phenomenal tool. And I'd say the last thing we're seeing on the Microsoft tool set, and there's really cool things you can do here, is both no-code, low-code solutions with Power Automate is the name I'm trying to think of, where you can automate workflows. So again, on Microsoft Forms, somebody, maybe you're collecting external information or internal information, maybe it's around employee engagement survey or something like that. What if you can have their parse the data and notify, alert people automatically on certain things based on this field as criteria, as you need to notify this department, this communications department, HR, that sort of a thing. So that's like the easiest, simplest place to start. And we're seeing a lot of work around that. And then really seeing work on this too. And this is such a nice thing to see where for years, I think we've always just been that if you want to do business with us, you do business with us. This is just how we do it. I've had to change the mindset because now the consumer is who's in charge. We as businesses have to find and meet the expectations of their customers, because if they don't, they can go online and be the nastiest reviews they've ever left on anybody on there. And so that's one reason, but it's also what we need to do to retain the business or that customer so they keep coming back and consuming more of whatever it is we have to give them. And we're seeing a lot of work on the whole customer experience side, and same on the employee experience side too. I'll maybe just share a quick example. Back to my 100 days here as well. We were evaluating the use of technology and tablets in trucks, and the whole concept was that, and this is a really neat success story during our pilot project evaluation. We were going through it. One of our lead operators came back and said, "Guys, I was just talking with a competing operating company when farmers, they meet on the gravel road, they roll down their windows, their arms are hanging out, they're talking for 10 minutes. Our operator was going to go to the kids' hockey team that night because technology was efficient. We made his job easier. He was more effective at what he did. He could get home at 5 o'clock and make his kids' hockey game. The other guy couldn't." And I kind of forget all the details of it. That was essentially what was shared with us, and I thought, cool, that feels good to me. And that's the true impact that we could be looking at from an employee experience, is how do we make their life easier? How can they be more efficient, more effective at what they do? The fourth theme that we've been seeing is certainly a big one, and it gets bigger by the day, and this is the whole value of data. I've talked a little bit about this already throughout, and it's nice to see that businesses are exploring this. Sometimes a little simple way is just around KPI automation. We've always said you can't do what you don't measure, and so we talk about meeting KPIs in the business, key performance indicators, but we can do so much more with this now. We can measure a heck of a lot more than we ever used to. And again, we're not using accrual accounting and data accounting techniques and stuff like that. We can actually drive data in real time from transactional databases that we report on and see what's going on in our world right now. So imagine if you were a retail firm and you've got sales across Canada, you could see in real time what's going on in different regions. How are we doing? How's our supply chain look like? Whatever it is, you can bring it in. However, where we've had to see a lot of work happen in this space is, great, we bring Power BI in or something like that. Now, Microsoft will do a really good job of selling it as the most simplistic tool, and then you can start tomorrow and things will just be working for you. Wrong. It takes a long time to get your data right. And so when organizations kind of bring this one up, we say, cool, let's start with exploring data a little bit more, but let's start with a little subset of data in one system. Maybe we can improve our reporting capabilities, but where the real value exists is when you start bringing data from across function, like different functions, different systems that bring together. Problem is the way data is structured in one system versus your next business system versus your other line of business system are all different. And they don't come together nice, and then tools really struggle to report on it. So we've seen a lot of work around digital data governance and really just organizing your data. And that's where you have to start. The opportunity here is absolutely massive. I mean, some of the biggest firms, Netflix is a massive data company that's been doing a tremendous job of knowing what we want to watch next and presenting it to us to get there. Costs a fortune. But the opportunity of the prize is big. So organizations really have to build a strategy around this and what they're going after, because just to play in data can be very, very expensive, and you might not get value out of it. And just that whole data governance and going into data warehouses, organizing their data is a slippery slope. So I only say with caution of this huge opportunity. And the last thing that I wanted to share that we're seeing in organization, and this is what gets me the most excited, is playing. We're experimenting. This is why I have an F-150 Lightning sitting on the side today. And this is so good for businesses to pick up on, because there's a lot of disruptive and new and emerging technologies that are coming out, I still say things like 3D printing, which has been around now for probably 5-6+ years, is still a emerging technology. It's still new. It's kind of gone through its hype, and now it's not really used. It'll pick up. There's huge business applications for it. In fact, I always think the neatest one is NASA and the space station. Like when they need a part, it's how they make it. 3D printer, of course. And so you have a manufacturing firm and you need to make a one-off or a low volume out of something. It might actually be more cost effective to make a part through 3D printing than it is to retool set your line, your manufacturing line, and build it. So there's really neat things that you could do around that. The most disruptive technologies that I'm seeing is certainly around Internet of Things, like connected devices from your refrigerator at home to comfortable oil wells, to, if you name it now, it can be connected, which is pretty crazy. Data analytics, the whole machine learning, artificial intelligence space, blockchain is certainly something that we heard a lot about, not hearing about it as much now, but still has some real business implications. And we might see that come back a little bit, and there's lots of organizations that are exploring that quite thoroughly still. Virtual reality and augmented reality, big implications there too, around training, safety training. What if you put fire personnel, people are at fire all through simulated training without putting dangers in front of them as a starting point? I think that's tremendous what we can do there. Robotics and automation, low code, no code, app development. These are all very disruptive and absolutely change the way we do things. And so it's really neat to see businesses trying to play with this a little bit and explore what is the art of the possible. What I really want, the message I think I want to deliver with this though is experimentation is very cool. I think we have to get very comfortable with failing. Something I think it's just in our DNA is we always want to succeed, we never want to fail, but here's something, most experiments will always fail. 1 out of 10 might come through and be a success. So how do we get comfortable failing? Something when I coach teams on is they always have me used to failing fast. And the whole concept behind that is just don't draw it out. Don't try to make something that's not going to work succeed. Don't spend more money than you need to. Just figure it out. Does this have legs? Does this not have legs? The other thing we have to get our heads around too is we come from this financial background where we have to measure things based on paybacks and ROIs and all these financial metrics. Experimentation doesn't work with any of that. You're exploring the art of the possible. We're trying to see what maybe can we do with this. The ROI and feedback, you figure out later, not long before you go mainstream, but at the point where you experiment at something actually this might change something here. This might have a positive impact for our organizations. So it's something I have to coach teams through a lot. Get used to failing. Just fail fast. Don't worry about the ROI. Sorry, my chief financial officer. We'll sort that one later. We're just experimenting. We're going to figure out the art of possible here first. I didn't know that I was going to get payback with that truck in 8 months, but now I've got it. I'm kind of excited by that. The cool thing is, this is what if you stumble on something? What if? And so maybe again, 9 things don't make any sense to you. Something does all of a sudden. But I also say don't experiment just for the sake of experimenting. Kind of do that, but again, you have to stop. And at some point, you have to pair something you're finding maybe has some legs with a business problem that exists over here. You don't need to introduce something where there's nothing over here that you're solving. There always has to be a problem that we're solving. So just something I find the teams have to get around. Who's exploring playing with this just on the topic of the playing? Half of this heard. That's probably, I would guess, a verse or two. The reality is people are playing with this. Lots aren't, and I think we should be. So I was thinking here, maybe I should explain, what's the value with conversational AI tools like ChatGPT? And I said, why don't I just let ChatGPT answer my question? So, or my crappy typing in my truck this morning. What are some real business impacts of conversational AI such as ChatGPT? Improve customer service. 20% availability. We spend a lot of time talking about this with robotic process automation as well. Humans work 8 hours, and we're not even productive for 8 hours. Cost savings, enhanced sales and lead generation. I don't know, if anybody hasn't seen the tool, I more just wanted to use this just to show you that I could have put a slide together on this and it would probably take me 30 minutes to put the content of the slide together. This did it in 20 seconds. How am I using this? Well, the other day I was actually, that's how I do a lot of work in credit union space, and as a credit union in the province is actually hiring a chief information officer, which is great. And I'm working with them. We're building a job description. I spent 3 hours on it, and there was 2 other people working on that. So let's just say we collectively put 10 hours into this job description. Think of our salaries. How much that's now costing? I said, I'm a CEO for a credit union in the province of Manitoba. I'm hiring a chief information officer, generating a job description. That job description is just as good as the one we came up with. 10 hours times $200 an hour versus go time top. Policies, building policies. In fact, and I want to talk about this. So there's actually some conference in CIO Forum in Toronto 2-3 weeks ago. And we were kind of unpacking conversational AI, ethics, everything co-counted. And one of the takeaways that I was hearing about this is the need to develop policy around the use of tools, conversational AI tools. So what do? Is naturally I asked ChatGPT if it would make policy on using itself in the organization, and it spit out just the perfect one. So for those who need to make policy in the organization around like ethical use and appropriate use guidelines of conversational AI, you could have it make it for your policy for you in seconds. Now, that provides a baseline. Did I tweak it? Yeah, absolutely I did. But it got one very much quicker than I would be. And that's the real business impact, is that organizations start using this today, and I think they should be. I have no qualms of using it. Where I get a little bit concerned is around the ethics of it, for sure. Thank goodness I'm not in education. I would have major concerns around that, and I get why. But even in my workplace, I don't know that I love thinking about people kind of cheating. It feels a little bit like cheating. It feels a little bit like plagiarism, albeit this is a unique output for me. It's not traceable back to an AI engine necessarily creating it. Maybe comes with a little bit of a different writing style than me. But I think it should be disclosed. And that was certainly one thing I was hearing in Toronto, the contents around policy that organizations should say is, cool, use it. It's at your disposal. It's a good co-pilot to have in your pocket, like your cell phones. But disclose when you do use it, and we're cool with it. Okay, I can wrap my head around that for now. This will change a lot. In 6 months from now, that conversation around this will probably be entirely different than it is today. But encourage its use, put some policy around it, and especially around saying, disclosing when you're using it. And my second point to that within policy that organizations need to consider is don't put your sensitive stuff into this engine. Like, sound something, and we heard the horror stories there. They went and put a whole bunch of code into, I think it was ChatGPT, I don't remember which engine it was. These are learning tools, large language models absorbing data from all over the internet, and any data that we can get at. These learning right now, right? That's why these things are in public preview, is so that people like you and I will use it, and that they can learn how we use it, and they can adapt and get better and smarter. But when you feed it proprietary, sensitive, personal information, it's in the tool and it owns it. So just be careful around that. And so that's sort of this policy I think organizations to accept. Just, okay, good, you can use this. We just have to use it smartly. Anybody know this story? Muppets, right? So and it was a fake picture because it's a Muppet, but I forget which tool it is. These large language data sets are not just doing conversational AI and text like this. This is a fake picture. It's completely generated by AI. This picture was created by somebody that used an engine saying, put a picture of a Muppet in every province of Canada. And it did, and this is Manitoba. It's unfortunate that it's clearly what hits our news is poverty and some of our social challenges that we have in these products. Hence why we have probably like a homeless camp in the background. But this is what it thought probably Winnipeg when it built it. And so no human being made this picture is kind of what I want to share. There's a really interesting one too, which I think is Boris Johnson hold out my 2 security guards. That's not real. Now, as human beings, this is going to get really hard around fake news and stuff like that. Because, like, how do we even know what's real and not anymore? I mean, it was crazy when Photoshop came out and we could make stuff that was maybe stretched from the truth, but now we have AI making stuff for us. This is where I'm scared. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay? I've lost track. Oh, we have good. I'm gonna shift gears. I do want to get into like the whole IT risk side of things. This is an area I spend a lot of time in, especially when I work with credit unions, but really all small businesses. So I mentioned that I'm the CIO for training the fiduciary services as well. Super fascinating story. You know, sitting with the executive director just a few weeks ago at the board meeting. We're doing a lot of disaster recovery planning right now. It's the response planning around cybersecurity, and he said, Ken, I haven't spent the last 20 years of my life building this agency for it to be lost tomorrow because of a cyber incident. And so as much as we think this is only private sector, big businesses, it's so refreshing to see a non-profit organization get it and to hear why is it that he cares about IT risk. They do tons of work in the social services space. They have a group home here in Winnipeg. That's what he says. I didn't spend all this time to do all this good work for it to be gone tomorrow because some hacker from some nation state country, who knows where, takes me down. And so this is a very important topic to me. I've been through a few cyber incidents now in the last couple of years of my career. Big ones and small ones, and I learned something good from everyone. So I like to talk about it without talking about it, because I think there's lots to learn, lots to share, and you can all get better because of it. Anyways, this is Statistics Canada's report. They launched this October 2022. There hasn't been to be one, it'll probably get launched this fall. This Canadian stats, this is real for us here in our country, and that is 1 in 5 Canadian businesses were impacted by cyber incidents in 2021. 2022, probably similar numbers, I would expect. So the blue color here, 16% small business, 25% medium business, and then this yellow is unknown. I don't know, small or large or medium, I'm not just sure. I'm going to presume small, mediums, at least half of this pie chart is in that small, mid-sized business range. That's all people are trying to share with you. I think you've all come to accept that it's not just the big guys getting attacked anymore. I'm just reiterating that so that we're all on the same page. And it's certainly with this not a matter of if, but when. If we're seeing 1 in 5 every year, in the math, I mean, in 5 years, we're all going to get it at some point, regardless of what we do. The way I kind of look at it is, I actually think of it on the street as well. Our house, we have the deepest basement, but I figured if I have the best sump pump, and I can pump more water out of my basement, it's my neighbor's problem. And cybersecurity is kind of the same way. If I can just make it a little bit harder, I could be a little bit more secure than the next guy, then hopefully I'm not the one that gets attacked. It's the one that doesn't have the controls in place that maybe would be probably effective, and that way I keep my employees safe, I keep my business surviving and moving forward. 600 million was the cost to Canadian businesses, not individually, collectively, in 2021. It's a big number, and that's for 2019. The global statistics scare the heck out of me. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but we have seen a 50% increase in cyber attack attempts globally. So these attempts, keyword here, these are not victims. 15% is the increase of successful cyber attacks year over year. And these are still staggering numbers, and this is what gets me, this 6.9 billion. I should actually visit this presentation someday. I saw a really cool like global GDP, global domestic product chart. $7 billion from a GDP perspective would be the 3rd largest country in the globe. US, China, hackers, Russia. That's crazy. for 6 trillion, so I think that was maybe the number. I don't know, we gotta pull out of that. It's a really interesting stat. The good news, hey, the cost of an incident response has actually gone down for the first time since this whole thing became an issue. I should maybe say maybe starting to go down. These are early trends. This gets me a little bit excited, but I think I'm seeing it. And that's good. I think largely it's because the cost of ransom has actually started to go down. And I would be surprised because you hear just staggering numbers of ransom what businesses are paying. Maybe we're actually started to go down. We're starting to see the prescription of data for ransom actually less. We're not seeing as much of this anymore, and that's also probably a little bit baffling because this is what hits the news. To hear on the news is not necessarily always reality. But I think a lot of that is because the bad actors are now going for like data exfiltration. They don't care so much about encrypting your data so you can't get it. It's the threat of what if we took your most sensitive information, we have it now, and we could sell it on the dark web or do whatever, all sorts of damaging things. That's what hurts more in business now. It's, we've all become pretty good at backups when it comes to the data encryption and recovering. And this is actually a really good story too. Incident response firms, there's several. I get involved in these incident response, but like we hired these technical firms to come do it. They're rapidly stopping incidents now. What used to take days and days, and trust me, a cyber incident lasts for days and weeks. Don't think that this just happens over hours. But as for like stopping bleeding, 5 hours is the stat. Once you get an incident response team, like these are the $100,000 teams, but when they come in, they can actually stop these things pretty quickly because it's the same bad actors over and over again. They know their background, they know their tactics, and so they're getting really bad at it. However, so I talked a little bit about the data exfiltration, and stealing data and doing bad things with data. That's definitely happening. And because the companies are paying big to keep their brand out the dark web. And this was a little personal for me. An incident that was going on once, busy, communicating all sorts of things, and all my communications got leaked to the dark web. My name all over it. And I mean, it felt invasive. Well, I wasn't comfortable. Like our whole strategy was now out there for the bad actors and whomever. But guess who picked this up? It wasn't the bad actors. It was the frickin' media. So guess what? CDC, CTV, that they were all calling every last one of them. So they're watching this stuff too, which was absolutely crazy. I was floored by that. I didn't like it. We had to spend some money to get our name off of there. It would manage, but I mean, it just derailed what we were working on. We had to come up with new plans for this. Told the world what we're doing because of the dark web. This has got to be the most scariest thing ever, though. And I don't know, but if you understand what that means, the malware as a service, it's like everything is a service now. You, anybody can just go and do your own cyber attack now. And this scares me from like an employee that's going rogue on you, they're disgruntled for whatever reason. What are they going to do to us tomorrow? Well, they're mad at us because they go and pay peanuts and execute a malware attack on us, and would overrule about the instructions on how to execute them. Another dark side thing is just around cyber insurance too. I was spending a lot of time trying to understand cyber insurance. It's moving on the ground, it's changing quickly. Premiums are through the roof, but I'm not surprised because they're having to pay out. And the thing is, I'm saying if you can get deducted for cyber insurance now, I'm actually changing my language on that a little bit. I think every business can get cyber insurance. It's just at what cost? And especially if you've had breach, forget it. You have hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s. But especially if you're in like heavily regulated space, this could be a requirement for your regulator that you have cyber insurance. And so if the cyber insurance is going to cost you $1 million, guess what? It's the cost of doing business. Just quickly want to talk about 2 attack vectors. I think this is the most important. There's several, but I don't want to just sway you to think there's only 2 that you need to worry about. But it's our people, our staff, and the other is just our systems. And when I really boil it down, that if you just did the absolute bare minimum as an organization, it's train your staff, create that human firewall, provide cybersecurity awareness training. It's cheap, it's effective, and test people. How are we doing? Run KPIs on this so you know, like, what's our the phish-prone percentage? What's the risk of somebody clicking? This is just a big percentages game. if 50% of your organization is going to click, and hey, we'll ask something, guess where we start? 54% of our people fail their first nest. Holy jeepers, that's scary. We got that number down to less than 1% in like less than a year. Didn't take us any time at all. That's a big percentage of this game. I only have to worry about 1% now, compared to 54% as a spread. The chance of that 1%, I guess probably 3 people getting spearfished into clicking a bad email is much less than the 54%. But this has been a big one for me, and actually the results, actually that's big. This is why I'm sharing it. Is the system cyber. It drives me absolutely bonkers when I've been involved in an organization and they've dealt with a cyber attack. It's because they have some system. They've migrated to Microsoft 365 during the pandemic, but they're too scared to get rid of the Microsoft Exchange to serve this on site. They've got ports open to it, and they haven't patched it in 2 years. They get hit. It's nonsense. There's absolutely no reason to it. You should absolute strict policy around this small medium business, any business now, that everything has to be patched right up to date, and it'll save you. Because that's where zero-day attacks are coming. Because we're all on the phone attacks are coming from. Criminals are looking for this, are looking for open ports that are networks. Ways in, find the door, you're done. Please just nothing stand in a phrase. So please just patch. I spend a lot of time with governance on patching because it is a big deal. I just wanted to level set one little thing here as well. We talk a lot, like when we think computers and risk, we always think cyber risk and cybersecurity now, and I say it all the time too. But really, we just have to understand that cyber risk is just a subset of technology risk. Technology risk is more than cyber risk. This is like critical system failures and disaster recovery. But really, technology risk is just a subset of enterprise risk. We're generally not bad at this as organizations. We have financial controls in, we think about financial risk, we think about operational risk, maybe all these things. We just have to think of that the same when it comes to technology risk and just look at cyber as a part of that we need a well-rounded approach to technology risk, which includes cybersecurity, and that's going to be a big part of it. But again, around disaster recovery, critical systems, how we manage third-party risk, and so on and so forth. This sometimes seems like a big pill to swallow for small mid-sized businesses. Larger businesses are pretty good at jumping onto this. But I'd say even small businesses now adopting a framework as your friend. And see, okay, why a framework? Well, a framework is really just a written kind of rule book around like, here's how you should effectively manage IT risk and cybersecurity. I kind of default to one called NIST, the National Institute of Standards. Oh, Jack, I forget what it says. There's several other ones. CIS is another very popular one a little bit. ISO 29001, I forget the number there. There's several frameworks out there. They're all kind of the same at the end of the day, so you don't lose sleep over which one you go with. Why I like NIST is in North America, I find that it's widely adopted. I find there's a lot of data, like I benchmark myself to like the industry peers so that I know how am I doing compared to everybody else. And to me, it gives me some more insights than I would have otherwise. It is really easy to find providers that can come in and provide independent assurance and assess me or audit me on NIST as compared to other frameworks. You can as well, but NIST just seems to be popular. The biggest benefit to me and why I think organizations need to consider it is we've always defaulted to protect. The whole, like, we have a castle, we build a moat around it, right? At the start, we had a firewall, and others. Their businesses are way more complex now. We have third parties, and there's stuff coming, going, we're integrated, and APIs, and complex technology, and people, and you name it. We've had to accept that we can't just protect the castle or just the crown jewels. We have to accept that what happens if we fall victim to a cyber attack or to a critical failure. And what I think, anyways, the framework does really well for us is it rounds us out so that we make appropriate investments in the different pieces of managing risk. So this is actually going through some changes right now. There's a draft framework that's coming out that adds a new piece. I think it's called govern. But anyways, identify, protect, and tech to respond, recover. I just quickly want to cover this off. Identify is really us as an organization just thinking for a minute, what matters the most and why does it matter? I call this the crown jewels. So we have the crown jewels in the castle, and the boat or the drawbridge, let's say, whatever happens, I don't know. How are we protecting what's absolutely the most critical to us? And why are we protecting it? As we're protecting, I mean, this is a big one, easily says, we should have appropriate safeguards to ensure cyber resilience. Sure, that sounds easy, right? But no, it's not. We've spent big bucks on protect to bring firms in, and this is where so many different layers of protection come into play, but there's some very cost-effective ones as well. There's some really interesting stats around in tech is we need to know when something isn't right. IBM, the famous stat here last year was the average cybersecurity breach goes undetected with the organization for 200 days. And so imagine your organization, 200 days ago, 199 days ago, maybe you were under attack and you still don't even know. But tomorrow you may know. That scares me. It should scare all of us. This is a good place to invest, is what if we can take that 100 or 200 days down to hopefully immediately or soon? Because the problem is you're giving somebody a 200-day head start. That's how I look at it anyways. And if they're spending 200 days crawling around my network, they probably know it better than they ever did. And so how are we ever going to win at that game? We won't. They're going to win. And so we got to find ways of protecting it. There's some good services out there around like security operations centers and SIMs like log collection that will provide you early detection. This actually goes back to employee training as well. Spend a lot of time just making employees like hyper suspicious about everything. Let's sweat the details, what I talked about. When your computer's just not even working right for whatever the reason and it's unexplainable, let's look into it, because maybe it's something. We've become very comfortable with false positives. False positives are fine. We'll deal with them all day long. Back to the it's not a matter of if, but when. You gotta have a response plan. So what are we doing? And this is a struggle for all businesses. Again, I think we don't want to spend all this time and invest in the response plan. I think we're just a simple business. Fine, don't go crazy with this then. Just do something. We say like, joke, I really emphasize on this too much, but like something on the back of a napkin is better than nothing. So like, sure, just do that. Have something in place, please. And then just your ability to get back to normal, which gets into just recovery plans and so on. So anyways, as I mentioned, there's several frameworks. This is my go-to. If you're somebody that's not technical, and it wouldn't know what you agrees with these things, I wouldn't worry that. If you're just looking at this, if you're a business owner or something, just ask team, what are we doing for each of these things? Sure, you want to understand the bullet points under them. What you can look for is just a balanced approach. Just look for something under every one. It's not telling you the whole story, this is telling you a bit of a story. And if you really see your sect every year, which I believe probably will be, and you got nothing here, very little over there, well, the conversation then probably is, hey guys, what are we doing about these? If you really want to, I'm just looking to retract my as I say, you really want to go crazy. This isn't crazy. Something super effective is actually self-assessing yourself. You can go and hire a CPA auditor to come in and do an assessment if you want, but if you give yourself an objective look and criticize yourself where you're failing, is you can take frameworks from NIST or for very small businesses. Actually say there's a really good tool, the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity, excellent resource. They provide 50 controls that every small mid-sized business should have in place. Just pull out those controls, dump them into a spreadsheet, and grade yourself from a scale of 1 to 5. How are we doing on these things? Are we barely doing it? Like, it's very ad hoc to, is it really defined? Or, where are we in our maturity curve on each of these? That's going to paint a picture for you. And it's a super effective, very cost-effective way of getting an understanding as to how you're doing when you're small, mid-sized business. So a lot of small, mid-sized businesses do that. And it's great. And then it's all good material that if you have a board, you can refer to the board, you start telling a story of look at all the great things that we're doing. This is not new. It's new. For years, I've always had supply chains in business. What do you call it? I love to call it third party. We're all partner enough. We have companies that when we hire out to do IT services for us, or that we hire to align a business application. Microsoft 365 is a critical third party that pretty much all of us are working with. We've got to take some time to understand who they are and what they mean to us. We just think because they're a third party that, not our problem, but they are our problem. One thing you have to realize now is that third parties are really just part of our business, and if they fail, are we going to help with it? So spending the time, I think that'll ship analogy of don't all us still want to be on the same boat, because if they do go down, we're going down with it. We can't live like that anymore. It's all about survivability. And so really consider, if you're in the small mid-sized business space or any business, large businesses should very much do this, it's worth taking the time to identify who are our key providers and our key systems. My little litmus test on this one is just, I look at it from an operational risk and a privacy risk. Microsoft 365, operational, what would the impact be? How much would it hurt if they have a failure that lasts 2 days? Not a big deal, or very big deal. It's gonna be different for all of us. We just have to understand how much pain is that going to inflict. And so that kind of can be the operational risk assessment. Low pain, medium pain, high pain, just high, medium, low, bad. And then same with privacy risk. What's the data that's in that system? Maybe we have a line of business system. Maybe we're a nonprofit. Maybe we're dealing with vulnerable people. Maybe we have jail records, health records, personal records on these people. If that line of business application, if data was compromised from it, how much would that hurt? Low, medium, high. Anything that has a high rating, I would call that a key system or a key provider, or material is often the term they use, or a material provider. And they need to be assessed in a very different way than anything risk well. If you're using, I don't know, what's a good example? Survey work. You don't have work data in there. SurveyMonkey fails. It always lives in sleep, right? So that's not a material system, but maybe that Microsoft 365 system is, or maybe that key line of business application is a material system. You need to go through much more scrutiny with that, both when you're bringing them on board, but let's face it, most of them we've already onboarded this company, so then what do we do? They should go through some sort of annual check. I think we should be based on contractual obligations, service level agreements, just really setting expectations, but more than just talking about expectations, putting those expectations into words and measuring these organizations on them. And if they're falling short, there's got to be some consequences. But then also, you need to spend some time around business continuity planning. And I know that's another buzzword, but that's if the Microsoft 365 wasn't here for 4 days next week. What do we do? Are we just shuttering the doors for 4 days? Or how do we limp along? Maybe it's not business as usual. It won't be. But what if we can keep the doors open and we can keep doing some level of business? It's all about surviving. And that's something you really need to be thinking about with our supply chain and key third-party providers. And then I mentioned ongoing monitoring. Little technique, this is not stuff that I get excited about waking up for in the morning, but there is a lot of value out of it. Anybody who's very material or very key to us, I'm looking for something like a SOC report or some sort of third-party independent audited report that says, here's their best practices or their industry practices. Am I comfortable with what they're doing? And then really just looking through it, where are their exceptions? Where are they not beating the bar? And that's independently audited by a third-party provider, so they're not making this stuff up, they're not cheating and telling me a different story than I need to hear. And this has become a kind of gold standard. I'm not saying it does everything for you, but it's the best we have today in gaining those assurances and the trust that you need in those ongoing relationships with third parties. The last thing I want to bring up is just, this is made in Manitoba a program over here called the Digital Manitoba Initiative. It's actually on pause right now for intake, but it's phase 2 just concluded, and there will be a phase 3, is what I understand. And I'm really excited by this. This program started during the pandemic, where they offered, it was really just a capital injection to businesses who wanted to invest in digital technology. And it was good. Some organizations used that really well. They got $5,000 and they invested that $5,000 wisely. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations are like, cool, hopped on Amazon, found themselves a nice new MacBook. There's nothing value out of that. There's no economic value, there's no strategic value for business. They rejigged the whole program, and I'm glad that they did. And they did it in a really big way, where they realized, how about we invest in strategy? So there's actually 3 streams to this program. There's a legal digital services stream, which is really good for an organization that maybe has a product or service they're selling, and maybe they have like terms of use or some sort of legal stuff around that, maybe privacy policy, that sort of thing. You can use that legal digital stream to help fund some work in that space. There's a cybersecurity stream for small and mid-sized businesses to get a cybersecurity audit, which I think is tremendous in giving you, painting a bit of a picture on what vulnerabilities do you have, what reports do you have, what are just some of those things that you can kind of get in place to get better hygiene going. And then I work pretty closely on the 3rd stream called the Business Technology Assessment. This is assessment that we at ourCIO have been here 3.5 years. Prior to this program, we had delivered it for about 20 Manitoba businesses. Now that's probably about 60 Manitoba businesses, which is very cool. The chance where we get to be their CIO or their vice president of technology and spend time with them, immerse ourselves in their organization and like get to like, what's the pain points, what sucks around here, what's working well, and we build a bit of a digital strategy for them as to around, here's what you could be doing to move forward and present that and find some recommendations. We get tremendous feedback on this program and that work, and the CIOs, the digital advisors we have working on it, tremendous. And I really, really think, because it's made in Manitoba program that every Manitoba business, small, medium, or large, should be giving some consideration to. Just excellent opportunity out of that. Very similar, same but different, is the Canada Digital Adoption Program, or CDAP for short. It's another program. I forget some of the parameters on it. We've been working with this program a little bit, mostly for outside of Manitoba companies. We've done a few in Ontario, BC, Alberta. Another great program, similar nature to this, and ultimately we're trying to build a bit of a digital roadmap for businesses. We spend a little bit more time focused on a few themes, where this one we're really bringing forward several findings and recommendations that are a little more actionable. These are a little more heavy lifting. The program kind of parameters, I would say, like focus on something, and maybe it's we need to bring in an enterprise resource planning system, ERP system. What's that look like? What's the cost? What would the time look like that for that to be delivered? But this program, is fully funded. This program, organizations see the pay in advance, so they get 90% up to $15,000 reimbursed through the grant. Both of these programs are easy to sign up for. There is not a tall ask, which I think most of us are concerned with government programs. And okay, like nothing's free. What they're going to want from me? They're going to want a little bit of data, but not much. It's really just an exit interview in how did it go? Did you get value out of this? What changes are you making because of this? 30 minutes or less, you're done. So it's not that you need to give a whole lot back. 2 great programs. I really think that organizations should be giving us a consideration. If you're interested in exploring either of these, I sound like I'm an evangelist for them. I guess I am. But I'd get to speak to these programs. I just think they're really good, and if you are interested, I might give you some more details on them. That's it. Did we have some time for Q&A, or did I just blab myself right into yours on?
Please take your time for Q&A.
I'd love to questions. We love questions.
What the sound effectiveness and ability and ask that. Thank you very, very much, Kent. Thank you so much. If anyone has a question for Kent, we can do it the old-fashioned way. Raise your hand. If you're online, still visiting with us, type in your question into the, I believe it's the right-hand side where questions can be entered, and we'll have someone who will text me the questions and I'll read them out for Kent.
Thanks. Cool.
Yes, so we'll mix things up, absolutely. But if there's anyone in the room who has any comments or questions for Kent, now's our time.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, let's ask one question. This is a really great presentation and some really good information about Justice Wisdom. Thank you. How trustworthy would you say are the third-party backup and redundancy programs out there that you can subscribe to online, you set it up once and then just forget it?
So the question, just more for the online audience to make sure I'm hearing it right, is how trustworthy are like, third-party backup services and tools? So for instance, you've got your small business, let's say, and you had
Small business, $120 a year, you just send it all out, connect it to your computers, and it's flying in the background, and then it can work
fair.
until you need.
I like to think that they're trustworthy, and the problem is that it's just, I remember an auditor years ago, so I've been lucky actually, and don't let my internal auditor here, just I've been lucky to work with internal auditors, that'll go straight to this head. The neatest thing he said to me one day that really resonated with me is trust but verify, which kind of goes to like the assurance reports that I was talking about, is that I trust that they're going to do a good job for me, but I need like some verification that they're going to do a good job for me. When it comes to backup, I think the biggest thing that organizations to consider is don't just assume that it's working. You've got to test it, you've got to verify. How do you do that? It's got to be routine. Maybe it's a monthly thing, maybe it's a quarterly. You have to determine what's right for you, but you actually have to do test recovery. It's like make sure you can get your data to that system and bring it back, essentially going through like a mini mock exercise, if you will, of recovering. And I think that's the best way you can get any insurance to say, okay, it's working, and that's what's going to develop the trust. But otherwise, no trust, just verify. That makes sense?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how my IT provider will like the fact that after I tell him, okay, thanks for covering all that, let's just test. He's going to really enjoy that. And have a laugh with me on the after the.
Yeah, but you can just do something simple. Like so maybe, I often like to put businesses I work with as a CIO through like an annual, more fulsome disaster recovery scenario. They do it as a tabletop exercise where we bring lots of people. It's not just tech-based. In that case, like we have business owners and like all the department heads and stuff around a table. We're going through it, we're learning, we're getting better, and like trying to determine gaps and like, all right, we can improve on this, and we make notes of things that we need to improve on after. That's the extreme, and that's something you maybe even want to do periodically, once a year.
Did it last night.
Awesome. See, that's sweet. And so many organizations don't do that. I feel like every organization should, because everybody has their own prerogative there. As for like the more routine backup testing, you could just pick like a system or a file or something a little bit smaller and just change it up. So maybe it's a monthly thing, but you're doing small tests. And that kind of gets into it. And then you're not having to do this big ordinary test every time. It could be problematic with your provider and that sort of thing. And that makes sense. Yeah. I have that side business part, but that's generally how I would want to look at it. So,
There'll be a question.
Oh.
Okay, and I've got one here.
I have gifts for questions.
Very nice. So we have over 90% of companies in Manitoba are small businesses, so fewer than 20 employees. They're busy, they're often solopreneurs, or they might have one other, one or two employees. Maybe they've heard what you said because of, learning new things, hearing things again and again. What's the one takeaway? What's the one thing a business needs to consider when it comes to digital change?
So I'm going to answer one for digital change. I'm going to answer one for risk, because I think that, let's see how I answer this question. I think the absolute biggest one, and I said it so many times, I think it's just experiment. Yeah, I really see value in that. And people are going to argue about, or get hit, why too, is like, well, why do something when there's really no point behind it? But the point is the unknown. And these companies that are disrupting, these companies that really succeed, they're just trying things out. If we're just sitting here doing nothing, heads in the sand, like, we're going to get left behind. And I think experimentation to me is the answer, getting around some of that, because they're going to find some things. And if you're not experimenting, a very comfortable place for organizations to be is to be a really fast follower. Like, I mean, a really fast follower. Cool, let somebody else figure out what you're doing. And then just kind of copycat, and maybe put your own spin on it and be a little bit better at it. That's absolutely another strategy that we're just fine too. And so I think kind of between those is just you have to be You have to be exploring, playing, understanding, making sense of it, and knowing where this whole world is going. That you're not paying attention to digital, I think you're going to get a little bit lost in today's climate anyways.
Agreed. Excellent answer. Thank you so much.
I kind of think Candy's digitally, so thank you whoever's question that was.
Are there any other questions from the audience here? Yes, Vicky.
You talk loudly and everyone enunciate. For those that are thinking about cybersecurity and maybe don't have a plan in place, whether they're an entrepreneur or a small business, would you think that the first kind of step for them would go through the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity, like look at those 50 controls?
Yep.
Or I know there's a lot of cybersecurity consultants out there. What would you think would be like kind of your opinion to a first step?
So the question, just to paraphrase, at the online audience would be more around like, what's the first step, small business or entrepreneur, like around cybersecurity? And would you start with the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity self-assessment? The answer, I think that's exactly where I would go. I really think it's a good opportunity to assess who you are. The Canadian Center for Cybersecurity, NIST, and different frameworks, these are just guidelines at the end of the day. They're trying to give you some insights on what you need to do. You still need to look through it, but through your lens and understand, does this apply to me? Do I care about this? Don't I care about that? But I think, again, it's 50 controls, if my memory serves me right, of the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity assessments. And actually, it's not even designed as a self-assessment. You just need to spit out the controls and you need to self-assess it yourself. It's a great place to start. And then you can see, and I always think I said earlier, just rate yourself. Don't just say yes or no, because that's not going to give you the best answer. You need to give yourself kind of a scale rating of, I always just use 1 to 5. 1, well, actually 0 being like, we're doing absolutely nothing with this. 1 being that it's very ad hoc. And, getting into more than 3 or like more than 5, we're actually measuring this. And I just never rank myself in 5. I just say there's no such thing as a 5. NASA can't go to a 5. And then, but you have to just look at it objectively. And if you can give yourself an honest rating for each of those, and then look at it afterwards, I think it's a great story that you've just brought to your attention, that you can now at a glance say, okay, I'm doing pretty good here, I'm not doing so good here. So strategically now maybe going forward, this is where my time, energy, and investment is probably most needed. And it'll help you. And it's going to feel like my big glaring hope is to something so easy as multi-factor authentication. It seems technical, but that could be your saving grace. Save many times. It's not the fail all, be all, save all, but it can do a big difference. And so if you see something and it'll ask you if you have multi-factor authentication in place, and the answer is no, well, first you're not passing your cybersecurity insurance exam that you need to fill out, but you're not doing very well on that self-assessment. That would give you an indication, okay, we can make some improvements here. And then, so that's like the most affordable way for you to do it, and then you can bring in some heck, right when you people like that, like myself, we can help with that for sure. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Sweet. Candy. I only have one more candy.
One jar left. Anyone else?
Just like that.
Question? Okay. Well, for anyone online, Shayla needs to notify me that there is one online, so sorry. Okay, so we have one here saying, I have an interest in innovation in Manitoba, also as a board member of the Association of Change Management Professionals. What's your take on OCM in the context of your presentation?
OCM?
Yeah, organizational change management. So what role does that play in digital transformation?
Yeah, well, it's every like factor to everything. Change management is interesting. I'm taking lots of courses on this. Found I'm just generally effective with it, and it's only because I'm a people person. I know what your interests are in LA versus what your interests are and what you are. I just see different stakeholders, the term we use in project management, change managers, and I know that every stakeholder has different needs. And I think that's something that needs to be considered with any change, especially rapid change, because you're really impacting the way people are doing things. You were a professor once who was doing a course at University of Manitoba on change management, and they spent a lot of time talking about sunsetting. And I remember kind of going home that evening and thinking, well, this is like for sunsetting things. I'm like, what's this world come to, right? That we need to sunset before making a change to something. But then, it came to me, I could get it now. And just a few days later, after the course was done, And it's like, I get it, like people become attached to things. And just because I'm excited by change, it doesn't mean you are, and you might be emotionally attached to something or looking for whatever to an existing system that we're now removing, and we're moving into this system. So we need to take care of your emotional connection to that system and be able to retire that system in a elegant and ethical way and bring the other one in with excitement. And it's just a new positive energy over here, this UR sort of a thing. So there's like just some little examples around like stakeholder management and and if anything, actually maybe the third is that's just communication. I talk lots to teams, but it worked with it. I said I'm not aware of any scenario where people over communicated and got in trouble. I find most people get in trouble if they're under communicating. And so it's just another area. And I'm really fortunate for with some really great communications teams in some of my companies, and they excel at this, and I can kind of hand things over the minutes, and they want my language, and I'll just send them 3 paragraphs, and I'll get 3 completely different paragraphs back, but they hit the mark on the language that they need to use. And so communication strategies around change, but also around IT risk management. Communication strategies are massive. This is not a technical response. It is a communication response, but absolutely matters around change management, communication, and stakeholder understanding, and those expectations and attachments, emotional attachments and things.
So I think it sounds like don't underestimate the amount of change and thinking through of how to best communicate the change to the team and the stakeholders and the vendors, no matter how big you're communicating.
Yeah, if I look at things through a different lens, and I probably should someday just step back and look at it. I think I absolutely see it from a cyber incident response plan. When we build plans, I actually recently, over the last couple of years, I would say the communication side of the plans have become as much, like as big as the technical response side of these plans. And if I look at like a change management perspective and program and product management side, it might be the same now. Communication is pretty important.
I would say as well. So thank you, Kat, for your question. And if anyone has questions around the change management aspect of any of the projects that you're thinking about doing or that you've implemented, and maybe they're going a little sideways, reach out to the Manitoba chapter of the Change Management Association, because they will have ways to help. I think that's really important. And as well, if anyone has any further questions, or you've got some things that you want to perhaps not ask publicly, follow up with Kent, follow up with ourCIO. They're going to have ready wise for you. I also want to say, to your point, Kent, about thinking about experimentation. If you're unsure how experimentation should look for your organization, you don't know where to start, I highly recommend checking out a Manitoba company, also a Tech Manitoba member, called Envision Edge, and they will help you build capacity for innovation within your company. They have training. That's what they exist to do. It's all about creating capacity for unique and meaningful value, experimentation piece. So again, Envision Edge, check them out. They've got some training later this month, and I highly, highly encourage anyone to check them out and to do the training. It's really interesting, and you learn how to follow up problems, and you start questions with how might we. So that's a great resource here in Manitoba as well. Another resource I want to highlight is if you're thinking about starting a business, or if you have a business and you're thinking, I could really use some support. I wonder how I can get some support here in Manitoba. If you've not heard of North Forge, please do. They are our provincial startup accelerator and incubator. They have the largest fabrication lab in North America. So if you want to learn about 3D printing, prototyping, this is the place for you. Again, North Forge, check them out. We've got something in attendance here today, and we really look at North Forge and others in the province who help to encourage startups. They get the ball rolling. They build the supports, they get the companies going, and then we at Tech Manitoba are really interested in, once the companies are at the, to use an analogy, a toddler stage, we're encouraging, come on, take your first steps, come on over, because we'll then connect you with resources and other supports that you might need to grow. So again, this is all about growing companies in Manitoba, making sure that you're aware that there are great organizations that can support you, and you're not alone. So don't feel like you are. If you're stressed out about digital transformation, cybersecurity, we have experts like ourCIO on hand who can help. So Thank you so much for taking time out of your really busy days for joining us tonight. For more information, come to Tech Manitoba. We can connect you with any other companies that you might think would be worth chatting to. And for upcoming events, if you're in Winnipeg on June 21st, at the BDC head office, they have a rooftop garden. Fabulous. It overlooks True North's rooftop garden, so you might be able to see some folks there from the Jets. Who knows? Can't promise anything. It's the Manitoba Women in Tech Meetup Group. We meet the third Wednesday of every month. We often do virtual events. It's for women as well as supporters of women in tech in the province. It is a collaboration between Tech Manitoba, New Media Manitoba, and North Forge, and we take turns hosting each month. And the summer solstice is going to be a great in-person rooftop gardening party in Winnipeg. We also have, let me just check it out here. If you're not able to attend in person for that summer solstice, we're going to have the virtual component as well, so you can network, you can meet some people, you can get connected to the tech community. We're finding that it's really popular with newcomers to Canada and Manitoba in particular to understand who's in their community. So again, check out the Manitoba Women in Tech Meetup Group. And then the last one is June 19th. It's a new group that we are forming called Plugged In. It's for early kind of tech professionals. At the moment, we have it in person in Winnipeg, but we can very much look at doing different locations or hybrid events like this one. It's at Across the Board Cafe. So if you're looking for a low stress way to network, if you're not familiar with Across the Board Cafe, they have every type of board game you can think of. They have game masters who will talk you through how to play those games. So it's a really low stress way to meet people in the community. We'll have someone on hand who's going to talk about how to get your foot in the door with a tech job. So they'll have some best practices. And it's just, again, a fun, free event to come out if you want to do a bit of a road trip. For those in Brandon, it's June 19th. So for more information about events, you can check out the Tech Manitoba website. So if everyone could please give a warm round of applause for Kent and ourCIO for today's presentation, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.